Dates don't come any quicker, and very few cars of any kind do, full stop. This 4th generation RS6 Avant promises a completely fresh set of dynamic attributes thanks to 4-wheel steering and the Quattro Sport rear differential and launch control. Under the bonnet, meanwhile, the engineers have added mild hybrid assistance to Audi's 4-litre TFSI twin-turbo V8, which develops 600 PS and a thumping 800 Nm of pulling power. The result is rest to 62 miles an hour in 3.6 seconds, 124 miles an hour in just 12 seconds, and one queasy-looking Labrador.
Like its predecessor, this C8 Series RS6 uses a 4-litre TFSI V8, but this time around it's provided from the outset with 600 PS and gains 48-volt mild hybrid tech. Best of all, it remains a thoroughbred power plant in terms of character and sound, as 62 mph flashes by in just 3.6 seconds on the way to 155 miles an hour, or up to 174 mph if you choose top Vorsprung spec. The driver can influence those aural fireworks by adjusting settings for the sports exhaust, one of the configurable elements that you can influence and then program into the car's customizable RS1 and RS2 drive modes. All of this power is controlled via an 8-speed Tiptronic auto transmission with optimized shift times and a launch control function. Through the turns, the Quattro 4-wheel drive system's Torsen differential pushes 60% of drive to the rear axle in normal conditions, although at the slightest sign of slip, up to 70% of torque can go frontwards or up to 80% to the rear, and that's depending on what's needed. As with the previous generation model, there's also a sport differential to vary torque across the rear axle and wheel selective torque control to maximise traction through the turns, which should be all you need to ruin the day of that supercar driver just behind you. To this recipe for this C8 series model, Audi Sport has further added a dynamic all-wheel steering system via which the rear wheels are steered in the same direction as those at the front at high speeds for greater stability. And there's air suspension on an RS6 for the first time, a fully adaptive RS air suspension with electronic shock absorption control setup, which augments the car's already 20mm lowered ride height by further lowering the chassis by an additional 10 mils at over 74 miles an hour. Curiously though, Audi reverts to more conventional steel springs with adaptive dampers for the alternative RS Sport Suspension Plus system fitted to the top and supposedly more focused Vorsprung model. The other change is the adoption of a variable ratio progressive steering rack, which gives more direct responses to larger steering angles, but there's still not the kind of feel that you'd ideally really want when you're pressing on at speed through tight turns. There's not much else to criticise here though, providing you can of course afford the near 6-figure asking price and running costs, which despite the 48-volt mild hybrid electrical system will be eye-watering. Think up to 22.6 mpg on the WLTP combined cycle and up to 283 grams per kilometre of CO2. The RS6 hints at its fearsome capabilities via a predictably aggressive exterior. With the exception of the front doors, the roof and the tailgate, the exterior of this RS6 Avant is different from the ordinary A6 Avant. It comprises exclusively RS-specific parts, perhaps most particularly these broadly flared wheel arches, which expand the car's width by 40mm on each side. These house huge Audi Sport wheels of either 21-inch or, as in this case, 22 inches in size. Up front, the prominently power-domed bonnet flows into Audi's usual big single-frame grille, in this case with a three-dimensional honeycomb structure finished in gloss black. It's flanked by now slimmer RS Matrix LED laser headlights, below which side air inlets, which can be trimmed in carbon fibre, open onto the strikingly drawn RS bumper and extend almost into the lower edge of the lamp units. That's a cue borrowed from the R8 supercar. The dynamic rear end consists of this race-style roof edge spoiler and an RS-specific bumper incorporating this prominent diffuser and design elements in gloss black with the option, as here, of carbon trimming. In hallmark RS style, the RS exhaust system flows on both sides into oval chrome-coloured tailpipes. So, lots to set this super estate apart outside. Will the same hold true in the cabin? To some extent, the answer is yes, although the changes here are a little more subtle. You'll probably notice these RS Sport seats first. Next, you might take in this RS branded flat-bottomed perforated sport leather steering wheel, which is here, can be trimmed in lovely Alcantara and features large aluminium RS shift paddles and a button which allows the driver to directly select preset RS1 and RS2 drive modes. As usual with large Audi models these days, media features are taken care of by 3 screens. Let's start with the one that you view through this grippy RS wheel here. The RS6 has its own version of the brand's usual 12.3-inch virtual cockpit instrument binnacle display with a view button on the wheel spoke offering various layout options. There's also a bespoke section for this centre dash 10.1-inch touchscreen, primarily in the car section where there's an RS monitor screen. The main purpose of that is to show in real time use of the sport differential plus engine oil, coolant, gear oil and brake discs. Let's take a look in the back. Thanks to this C8 Series A6 model's long 2.93 metre wheelbase, the back seat offers reasonable space for 3 adults, but it's much more comfortable for 2, and you get a fold-down central armrest with storage and cup holders. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. There's a more swept back look for this C8 Series design, but it hasn't impinged on boot space, which, when the powered tailgate finally rises, is still rated at 565 litres, as before. The centre part of the 40-20-40 split rear backrest can be retracted if you want to push longer items like skis into the passenger compartment without disturbing a couple of rear-seated folk. If you need to push the seat backs down completely, you do it by pulling on these cargo sidewall levers, which reveals a 1680 litre space. It's the sort of capacity that a supercar owner could only dream about.